Hey guys, Joe here, and welcome back for another episode. Today's episode is on the Golem, in which today I hope to bring you both basic and pro tips on how to use this big guy. And maybe if you stick around, you might notice a couple of things that you never saw before. The Golem is a tanking unit, which means that it has high hit points and can soak up a lot of damage, but has very low damage per second, which means that it requires the assistance of wizards and heroes in order to destroy the items that they're blocking. So think of the Golem as a big wall. Unlocked at Town Hall 8 by upgrading the Dark Barracks to level 4. There are 5 total levels available for the Golem, 2 being at Town Hall 8, levels 3 and 4 being at Town Hall 9, and then level 5 being unlocked at Town Hall 10. The use of Dark Elixir is the primary way to upgrade the Golem, and then the Golem also takes up 30 housing space within your army camp, so that's something to take into consideration when planning your attacks. It's how much space you're going to use in your army camps and tie up with the Golem opposed to other troops that can support them. And also when the Golem dies, it splits into 2 little Golemites, which you can see here in the replay, that still serve as the same purpose as the main Golem, but they have half the HP and serve as a short period of protection for your supporting cast of troops as they move throughout the base. So with that being said, the Golem cannot be expected to just go out there and take up all the damage. You must be able to support your Golem with the use of wizards or archers or heroes in order to keep them alive as well throughout the raid. And you'll notice that the Golem isn't just used for the initial funneling phase, but it's also great once it makes it to the core of the base, which I'll explain later on in this video. A couple of topics I wanted to discuss today is the Golem's AI, how to plan and your troop deployment, number of Golems, and the protection coverage of the Golem. The Golem is a star player across multiple strategies within both Town Hall 8, 9, 10, and 11. And as you see here, as we flow through a couple of those strategies, the Golem is actually serving as both the ultimate funneler, but also the ultimate guardian in the core of the base. So let's look at the Golem's AI, or artificial intelligence. Understanding your troops and what they do is one of the biggest keys to the success of each attack, no matter what strategy you come in on or where you approach a base. The Golem is actually a defensive seeking troop, meaning that as we look at this map here, it's going to target the closest defensive structure to it, whether it's restricted or unrestricted within walls. So if there's actually a defensive structure on the outside of the wall, both of these Golems are going to target it prior to targeting the ones inside of the compartments itself. So in this case right here, there's no unrestricted defensive structures on the outside of this base. Everything's within walls. So the northern Golem here is actually targeting the wall in order to reach that cannon up there in the north. And then the one in the south or southwest is actually going to target that closest cannon to it. So as this one goes live, I want you to stay focused on the Golems and watch their motions as they continue to move into this base. At this moment, they're stuck on the walls, and they're not going to be able to open up any entry points until they have wall breakers there to assist them with it. But if you notice, the one in the south, there was a compartment opened up, and then it starts to move into the base. And as the cannon falls, the Golem seeks out the next available defensive structure, and then as soon as that mortar falls, then it continues to move to the next opened entry point. But also look at the Golem in the north. He is continuously stuck on the wall until split into Golemites. So really that Golem was ultimately a waste. Despite the outcome of this attack, that Golem in the north was honestly a waste and was unable to protect the wizards in the north. But however, at this point, the Golem that was in the south has actually made it to the core of the base, and he's continuously seeking out the next closest defensive structure, whether it's unrestricted or restricted. In this case, the mortar was unrestricted, so he moves towards that, and then also moves towards that wizard tower, and then he'll go back towards the Tesla in the north as well as that archer tower. But at this point in the raid, it's already over. It's already served its purpose. But like I said before, the second Golem that was in the north was actually more of a waste because that northern compartment was not opened up in order for it to proceed to the next defensive structure in order to provide cover for those wizards to get in there and to destroy it. This attack here could have probably been over a lot earlier with a little bit less emphasis on the Hog Riders if that second golem had been able to get into the base. Now, as we move into the second attack, I want to do some planning and troop deployment, and we're going to look at this base, and yes, it's a Town Hall 9, but you should be able to apply these techniques for a Town Hall 8. Now, I like to pick the most broadside section of the base or flattened area, not a corner, because I really want to open up a wide funnel on this base. And as you see here in the north, you actually have this long section of wall, but pay attention to all these deterrents on the outsides of the base. And what these do is slow down the high damage per second dealing troops like the wizards. So what ends up happening ultimately is that you'll send your golems in to target these defenses in the north, and then you'll be waiting to drop your wizards. If you don't have a really solid plan, you'll end up being really slow about it, and your golems are just sitting on the walls getting chewed up by the defenses inside the compartments while the wizards are still fighting off these deterrents on the outsides of the wall. And so basically, in this case, these structures are actually low hit point structures, so they're not really going to take that long to destroy. However, your golems, it's the timing. You have to make sure that you get your golems down, you know where they're going to target, and then that you get your wizards down immediately after that before deploying any wall breakers. So really what I end up doing here is I use a queen walk in the south, and then I want to drop 2 golems up here in the north. And the reason why is because I see double giant bomb locations or possible double giant bomb locations in the core of the base and then in this compartment over here. And so I drop the golems to target this archer tower and this cannon. That way I can drop my wizards and then wall breakers after the wizards have destroyed the deterrents on the outsides of the base, and then I get my queen down to assist them with that. So really the golems aren't sitting there getting chewed up by the defenses inside the compartments while the wizards are working. So let's go ahead and get into this raid, and I want you to pay attention to not only just the golems, but the troop deployment and timing of the attack. Don't worry about this portion right here. This is more of a queen walk, and really I'm assisting with opening up the funnel. This is the beginning stage of opening up a nice wide funnel to make sure that my troops actually do go to the core like I need them to. And the queen is actually working and taking out these structures in the south. That way I know exactly where my golems are going to go and what they're going to target. And I'll drop one up here in the middle compartment and one in the north. And I actually do a 2-finger drop in simultaneously dropping my golems. And as you notice, I get those wizards down immediately afterwards. That way they can start working on those structures fairly quick. Had to make a readjustment on the wall breaker drop, and if you actually tune into that video, you'll understand why. That first golem's actually sitting on the wall, but the wizards are still there taking out those defensive structures. I get the jump spell down, and the only other options for the golems is to go in and start working on that expo. And now at this point, they've actually made it to the core. They haven't uncovered any double giant bomb locations quite yet. I wanted them to go in and search for traps as well. And at this point in the raid, they're in the core and they're causing a lot of deterrent or soaking up a lot of damage. That way I can start working on my hog riders. Now earlier in the video I mentioned that the golem is a tanking unit, meaning that he protects the wizards as they work. Now in this scenario here, you'll actually see an example of how you need to use your wizards to actually protect your golems. That way that you can get deeper into the base. And in this event here, the golems get a very wide gap in between them due to a detouring defensive structure on the outside of the base. But pay attention to that golem in the north getting chewed up by that enemy archer queen and defenses up there. And what's ended up happening ultimately is that the golem up in the north was more of a waste because he just sat there and took damage while the wizards were busy engaging those high HP structures like the elixir storages and gold mines. They are high in HP, and really it takes them a while to destroy those, especially when you don't have the archer queen assisting. And the golems are just sitting there getting chewed up while that's happening. So at this point in the raid, it's really a bust because you've lost your golems and you cannot proceed deeper into the base. Which leads us into the question of how many golems should you take within your war raid. And honestly, the answer to that is how much are you trying to get out of your kill squad This is based off of your hero levels and how deep you're trying to get into the base, or how wide of a funnel are you trying to create. In this event here, we have the stone golem technique, which is 3 golems, and KP also has mid-level heroes, level 15 heroes for Town Hall 9, so he's trying to get a little bit more out of his heroes, as well as use the protection of the golems to get deeper into the base and more coverage for those wizards as they move into the base, and trigger traps for the attack itself. But the downside here is that the golem takes up 30 housing space in the army camps, and in this event you have to compensate with either losing wizards or dropping off some hog riders, and you actually have to bring that golem in the clan castle, which leads us into the shattered golem. And this is more for advanced players. Well, you see it more at Town Hall 8 as well, but if you notice at the Town Hall 9 level, I have a archer queen working on opening up the northern side of the funnel, and then I actually use 2 golems in the southern portion to actually for a more narrower funnel, and they actually target 2 different defenses here, but it also allows the wizards to work. And this is pretty common. The Shattered Golem is actually pretty common across many of the strategies used at both Town Hall 8 and 9. It's just a matter of how wide of a funnel you're trying to get, which leads us into the cold-blooded method, which is 1 single golem, and you see it more in the higher Town Hall levels due to the fact that it's a gamble at Town Hall 8 and 9 using just 1 golem, because you're using wizards to assist with funneling. Up at Town Hall 10 and 11, you see a lot more queen walks, and now the addition of the bowlers, they're going in and they're able to open up a wide funnel on their own. So only the use of 1 golem or the giants in the more later replays are assisting with helping these bowlers move into the base. Which leads me into the last topic on the golems, is the protection coverage. And in this replay here, it's a Town Hall 8 hitting another Town Hall 8, and he drops 2 golems, Shatter Golem in this case. If you see those wizards in the north, they're actually getting picked off by that archer tower, while the golems are more in the south. So really the wizards should have been more behind the golems, or a different placement for the golems. And in this event here, he only opens up 1 compartment, which causes that southern golem to shift and go into that compartment, which now leaves wizards in the south wide open trying to take on that cannon by themselves. And really the emphasis here is not on the beginning of the attack. The attacker's more focused on what the Valkyries are going to provide for him, when in all actuality, if he had showed a little bit of patience with the golems and the placement of his wizards, he could have got so much more out of the attack. Yeah, it's just understanding your troops and understanding what they do, and that will lead to a greater success of your attacks, a lot cleaner attacks, and a higher success rate for 3-star attacks. Tell me what you think about this video and drop some comments below. And as always, you take care.